Hey everybody, this is going to be the supplemental video for CS135 assignment 9 involving parallel arrays. So for this program, we're going to of course have Timmy trying to raise money to go see Crash Nebula on Ice because of course the last time he tried to raise money for that show, it of course went horribly wrong. So this time around, he's trying to find a different approach to this problem. So he wants to basically create his own version of SeaWorld in a sense, and be able to have people or patrons come by and pay for seats to watch a set of different shows. So of course, to do this, Cosmo and Wanda can help Timmy, wish for all the supply and for everybody to show up and have the whole event. But of course, an automated system is needed to be able to set this whole system up, or to set this whole kind of theme park up. So of course, AJ is going to help with this, because AJ is definitely a brainiac in the Fairly Odd Parents. So of course, you're going to have to, pose as AJ in this for this assignment, and create an automated sort of ticket buying selling system to host this Timmy's World, which is sort of Timmy's version of SeaWorld. So that's basically what this program is going to be about. And of course, we're going to have a parallel array structure, if I didn't already mention that before. So now let's go ahead and go over what the actual structures will be needed to basically write this program. All right, let's go to the structures needed to implement this program. So we're going to have the following set of these structures. Let's first go over the two constants. So const int venues is going to basically just tell us how many venues we're going to have, how many shows we're going to have in this theme park. And then the seats is going to tell us how many seats per venue we can have. So it's not a very big theme park, but I guess this is really the best you can do with magic. So this string array of venue names up top is going to just store the list of all the venue names in this theme park. And then available seats, that's going to be a two-dimensional array that's going to just store a true or false value, denoting that if a seat is available. So it's going to have venues, number of rows, and so 8 rows and 5 columns. So there's 8 rows and there's also 8 venues in total. So for each venue, we're going to store each seat, whether it's available or not. And then we're going to have our final array, which is going to just store, it's going to give us the actual cost of each seat at the venue. So let's go ahead and go over a more of a visual representation of how this is going to look like. So let's look at the notes I have prepared for us over here. So this is how we can actually visualize the structure. So pretty much we have each venue, and we're going to store, so we can see here it's going to be a parallel array, whereas these numbers in blue are ways you can sort of join these together. Because remember, for typical two-dimensional arrays in C++, you can't have each column be something different. Every column has to be, the same type. So we have this sort of venues array separate from this, the seat cost and available seats array to implement this structure. So we're going to just sort of use these indices as ways to just basically link everything together. So let's go ahead and sort of go over the input file given to us, and we'll go over how we can sort of populate these arrays using our function. So the input file given to us is going to be right here. So we basically have every line in this input file is going to really store the data for one show. And we're going to have it tab delimited, which is basically white space separated. So we first have the name of the show, followed by a space. Then we're going to have 5 numbers, 5 decimals, separated by a space. And then next line, we have, of course, the Polywally Optosaurus show, which, yeah, I think I remember that episode. That was a weird episode, I believe. But anyway, well, they're all pretty strange episodes, but they were all fun episodes to watch back in the day. And so we can look at this and see that each element, each number here represents the seat cost. So for the polyvalent optus show, seat 1 has this cost, seat 2 has that cost, and so forth. So we're going to basically, we're going to take this file and try to create this sort of store this into our arrays using our functions given to us. Let's go ahead and first go over our first function and try to make sense of it. And I'll also try to animate how you actually want to set this function up to read this and store it into your array. All right, so our first function we're going to have to worry about is going to be this populate lists function, which is, oh, I actually misspelled populate list in this PDF, but I'm going to have it fixed obviously when I have it uploaded to Canvas. But right now it's not, it's supposed to be populate lists. Okay, so this function basically is going to take in a few parameters. So in file, input file stream. So in main, you would actually create an input file stream variable, and you would open an input file stream in main. And then you're going to allocate your 3 arrays. You're going to set your string venue names array to set it to size 8, or that venue's constant. You can also set the available seats. You're going to set that 2-dimensional array also in main, and you're also going to set the size for the seat cost in main. So obviously I think I already have it defined up here. So you want to just create these arrays in main. You're going to create an input file stream variable in main, and you're going to have it open up a file stream. So you're going to do all that in main, and once you have your file stream that's open and ready to start reading, you're going to basically pass that file stream variable into this function populate lists and your several arrays. So you're going to want to read from this file. So I'm going to first pull up the OneNote. I'm actually going to plug my writing pad in. That thing I made a noise, but that's okay. It's definitely plugged in, so that's good. So we have this file. So I guess you could probably not even use the end of file control loop, because you already know how many rows it'll have. There'll be 8 rows in total. So basically what you want to do is you're going to first read that first line. So in every line, what are you going to have first? Well, you're going to have that string, which will be a show name. So fairy show is going to have to actually go into venues index 0. I'll put that here. It's going to make this notepad disappear, but it's okay. I'll just put that here. I'll try to fit this here if I can. Not too well, but that's where it would actually go. So you have some type of a counter. It'll be definitely a counter control loop. And then the first thing you read is stored into venues index 0. And then these numbers right there, you have 62.52, 39.15, 10.0. All these will go into the seat costs array. I'll put this onto this board, onto the side, and my other monitor here, sorry. So you have to populate this array accordingly. So you're going to want to use maybe a nested for loop that will traverse through all this, and one by one, you're going to store these right here. You're going to have 4302. So you're going to basically, that's what you first have to do. So the first line of input will be one string, and you're going to have 5 decimals separated by a tab. You're going to read each of them separately and store them into the appropriate position. So 62.52 goes into row 0, column 0. 39.15 goes into row 0, column 1, and so forth. You want to first do that. Then of course you want to do it for the rest of these, and I have to write out this next string. Oh geez, okay, I'm going to shorten this because I can't fit that entire thing right there, but just sort of use your imagination and just imagine I put that entire thing here. So let's go ahead and simulate. So what would happen is in your loop, you would read the next line. So you'd have this inner loop which will read these 5 numbers on the line. The outer loop is going to read this name, then this will be the inner loop portion, and then once you read that 5th number, the outer loop will go ahead and read the next element. So I guess you have to figure out how to write the code to do this, but really not too bad. I hope it's not too bad at least. So I'll just go ahead and I'll just put poly over here. I want to put the whole entire thing. And then the first number would be 63.7, 21.84, 6.22, 14.2, and then 86.2. 21A9. That's what you're going to store next. So you can basically see what the rest of this code is going to do. Nothing too fancy. It's first reading that string, and you store it into index, well, first index 0, then index 1. So you're going to have an I loop, an I index, or I counter, sorry, which will basically, so I guess I'll just sort of write this here for you as well. So you're going to have your I index will be used to iterate through those blue numbers. Then your J index in your loop, so you're going to have an outer loop, and your J index is going to iterate through these these columns basically. So that way, sorry. So that way you can actually have your I starts off at 0, J will be 0, J will go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, while I remains fixed and reads in those 5 numbers into that one row. Then I increments by 1 to become 1, J is reset back to 0, so using that typical nested for loop to traverse through a two-dimensional array. This will be all in that populate list function. And of course, for the available seeds, you're going to just set every one of these to just be simply true. So all these are going to have to be actually true. And I'll probably just skip ahead in the video when we actually, I'll put them all to true in a second. But anyway, that's going to be how you want to write the populate list function. Once you're done with that function, before you return out of that function, of course, close the file stream before the function ends. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about the other functions and the rest of our program for this assignment. So there is the populated array. So this is basically how the array needs to look like after you run the populate lists function. So now what we have to do is I'll go over the other functions kind of step by step. Then I'll go over how you're going to sort of use them all in main, and hopefully this video will go by relatively fast. Let's go to our functions. I already went over populate lists. I actually went ahead and went over right there as to how to read from the file and store it into available seeds. So all of this content here, all of this is going to be inside of another for loop, an I loop that goes from 0 to venues. So that 0 right here, you're going to actually use a loop counter I, not 0. So that first index right there also is going to be probably going to be an I value. So kind of gave you a little bit of help on that. So now for the output shows. So basically what you want to do is output all the shows that are in fact going to be available. So there's the code given to you. So I kind of gave you an idea of how you want to set up the IO manip for this. So this essentially outputs just that first row, that heading. So if you go to the sample output portion, this is just that first row, but all the rows that come afterwards will have the same format. The venue name will be 15 characters, and then the actual amount of characters needed for each number, for the cost of each venue, will be 7. I'm wondering if 15 is still the correct number. I think I might have changed that, but I'll have to double check with that. But anyway, I could update this on the PDF maybe afterwards. I definitely modified my code a little bit after I wrote this PDF, so there's a chance that when you look at the PDF after it's already been posted, it might be different from this. But anyway, whatever is on that PDF, you want to go with those numbers. This is going to tell you how many characters you want to allocate to the venue name, and then how many characters for each cost. This function does exactly the following. Let's go back to our to the board here, and what you're going to do is have a loop that's going to one by one go through first output venues index 0. So it's going to first output fairy show. So the output produced by output show. So I'll put this over here. Output shows. You first output. Well, first that one border is going to be output up top. So you're going to output venues, I believe. I'm not sure exact. Let's take a look. I think it's venues. Venues all in capital. Sure. I'll keep it like this. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Actually, I'll make them a little bit further apart so it's better. So that code I gave you basically just does this. It creates that top row for you. And then what you have to do is have a loop that's going to basically output each of these. So you want to output first this, and then output that. I don't know if you actually can see this. Let me try to box it in a little different. Let me use a different color. I use a space pen there. Let me try to use red. You're going to first want to output this, and output all of that. Then output this, then output all of that. Then output this, then output all of that. That's what you're going to be basically doing in a loop. So you're going to have this loop that's going to traverse in that kind of fashion. I'm going to try to make sure I don't erase too much here. Let's take a look. Okay, good. So, all right then. So what about the array below? What about this available seats array? Well, what's going to happen is the following. You first output fairy show. So you first output that, fairy shows. And then you look at this element right there. If that contains a true, then output this number, 62.52. And then go on to the next element. If this contains true, then output 39.15. And if this is a true, which it is over there, output the number, which is going to be 10.0, which is a value so this is going to kind of correspond. So this corresponds with this, basically. If that contains true, you can output that number to the screen. Now, let's say this number let's say if this happens to be let's say for index, for the last one, right, let's say it happens to be a false. Let's say, which is, it's going to happen. You're going to have a false at some point. If that's the case, you would go ahead and say, oh, well, this contains false right there. So I'll put, so I guess first I'll put this over there. I'll just put this 67.43 over here. But I'll put an X actually in this case. So this Boolean array will tell you which seat is still available. So it's not available if it contains a false at that position. So if available seats 04 contains false, or in general sense, available seats ij contains false, then output an X, otherwise output seat cost ij, whatever number is stored there. So that's how you want to think about this. This array will kind of help you, will guide you to tell you know if that seat is available. If it's available, output that seat cost, otherwise output an X. And of course, you do it for every single venue. But you only output a venue only if there's at least one seat available for it. So for example, if let's say we have this, let's say we have the following situation. Let's say these are all falses. Then Chompy, the goat, this, you're not going to output that to the screen. So after you output Polywally Optosaurus and then all the prices of each seat for the Polywally Optosaurus, you go to Chompy, you see Chompy, all of them are false, so you skip Chompy and go straight to outputting Cosmo's bad ideas and then the seat cost of all available seats for it. So if there is a venue where all the seats are sold out like this, which this could happen, I'll show an example when we go over the sample execution of our program, then you don't want to output that show at all. So just another thing to look out for. So output show is basically all you do. Have your I loop, which is going to output each venue name, and an I loop will output each row, but that J inner loop is going to go and traverse through each column of that row. So an I is 0, then you have seat cost 0, go to available seats in row 0 and check that column. And I increments by 1, so now it's going to be I will be 1, so you output poly, because poly is at index 1 of venues, and output row index 1, essentially. So the way you can look at this is this corresponds to this. And then, this would correspond to that, just to repeat myself again. So that's how we're going to kind of visualize this. And this available seats array is going to be kind of shadowing our seat costs, because you only want to output stuff only if that seat is still available. And if all of them are false, don't output that venue at all, which we'll see in the sample output in a second. So that basically summarizes how we do the output shows. So let's go ahead and go into our other functions next. Okay, so I went ahead and put all these trues back just like this, so it's easier for, I guess, for notes. So I'm going to post these most likely along with this video, so you can look at that. But I just put that back to all true just to maintain the just to maintain that, I guess. So anyway, let's go back to our PDF and go over this function bool any available seats. So this function will pass in the available seats array. I have a const in front, so this really means that this array will not be modifiable in this function. But of course, you can feel free to remove the const from this parameter heading. So you can remove that const if you want. But I put that there just to be really official. So that way, this function is not going to be able to update anything in available seats array. This function returns true if there's at least one seat available, so it's not a complete sold out show. Otherwise, returns false. So all you have to do in this function, any available seats, is basically go through this available seats array and traverse each element. If you find at least one that contains true, then obviously return true immediately. It returns false if every single cell in this available seats matrix all contains false, then return false, which implies that, well, all the shows are all sold out, so that's that. So that's going to be how this function has to be written. All right, so next we're going to have this function validate choice. Okay, so in main, what's going to happen is you're going to have to ask the user for a venue name. So the user is going to select a venue, or which venue they want to attend. This function is going to basically validate the choice. It's going to basically tell you what index it found this show on, if that makes any sense. So it's going to be a classic linear search traversal, basically. So all you're going to do is the following. You pass in the array of venue names. You pass in available seats. You're going to pass in some name of venue. So in main, you can ask the user. So I'll go to the main algorithm part towards the end. But you're going to basically pass in this name. And you want to verify if this venue is a valid venue in this theme park. If it is, it returns the row index of where this venue is, or the actual element in the venue names array where it was found. Returns -1 otherwise. So for example, if let's say I call a function like this, so let me go back and make sure I get the right syntax. If I say validate choice, okay, if I go ahead and call validate choice, and of course in main, I would go ahead and pass in venues, which I have right there. I would pass in available seats. And I'll pass in, I guess, the, what's the name of that venue? It's Catman. I think it's actually called a tribute to Catman. Of course, you know, tribute to Adam West. Sorry if this is really terribly written, but a tribute to our friend Adam West, who was Catman in Fairly Odd Parents. So this function is going to find if this venue name exists. So in the actual body of this function, you would first start from 0 and verify if it's equal to attribute to Catman. It's not. This index does not contain it either. So you do a linear search through this array. So eventually you finally hit index 6. And that venue name does match tribute to Catman, so return 6. Return the index of where you found this element. Just kind of the classic linear search type of code. So if I were to pass some name right here, so some name I passed in that was not a valid venue name, return -1. Also return -1 if, let's say, for Catman, let's suppose every sort of seat is sold out. So there's no available seats for Catman. Let's say we have this situation. Then you also have to return -1, because even though Catman is in the venues list, there's no available seats left. So you have to verify, first of all, if the name you're passing in is a valid venue name, and you have to verify if there's at least one seat available for this venue name. If that's the case, return the index of where you found this name. So in this case, return 6, which is the index of where you found this Catman. Otherwise, return -1, which you're going to use this in main basically to do other types of work. So let's go ahead and discuss the next functions in this PDF. All right, so let's go to book seat. This is going to be a really interesting function to work on. So it's going to be definitely a more challenging one. So what this function is going to do is you pass in the available seats array, the seat costs, the row, and then the choice. So what is row going to be? Well, in the function above, when you say invalidate choice, it returns the row index. It returns which row it found that venue name. So the integer returned by validate choice, that's going to be passed into book seat in this row. So essentially, let me just put some notes here on this PDF, just to make it easier. So basically, all right. So whatever this returns, so in main you would call this function first, and that's going to get passed actually into this function, into its parameters list. That's what's going to end up happening basically. So you have that, but before you even call book seat, you first have to ask the user what seat column they want to actually which seat number they want to reserve for themselves. So either it's going to be a character 1 through 5, or you're going to pass in a lowercase or capital C. So basically, let's go ahead and first just do an example of what this function is going to actually do. Let's go ahead and write this out here on the board. So it's called book seat. So book seat, and of course we just made sure I get the right parameters here. You're going to pass in available seats as an array, so you're going to pass this into the function. I think you passed in the seat costs as well. Yes, you do. Okay, so seat costs. And then the row is going to be, well, whatever was returned earlier. So I'm just going to I guess I was put in a literal. I'm going to go ahead and put in 6. Let's say. That's the valid choice returns earlier. So passed in 6. Let's suppose right now, I'm going to set these back to true for a second, just to kind of make a statement, make a point here. Let's say they're all true, just for the sake of going over different possible scenarios. And then the user is you're going to ask the user before you call this function book seat, which is also described in the main algorithm, you're going to basically pass in some character. So let's first go ahead and pass in a character 2. Let's say you ask the user for which seat index. So seat index is going to be any one of these. 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. But it's going to get passed in as a character just because they could pass in a C, or they could pass in a digit 1 through 4. Actually, no, sorry, it's going to be 1 through 5. But remember, for us, it's going to be 0 through 4, but the user is going to actually pass in 1 through 5, which is also a little bit odd. But remember, arrays start from 0, but typically for us humans, we always start from 1. So for us, behind the scenes is 0 through 4, but to the user, it's going to be from 1 to 5 will be the column indices. So they pass in 2. That means they're going to look at row, so venue number 6, and then column 1, which is going to be this seat the user wants. So within this function, actually, if you look at the function prototype here, we have int row and char choice. Okay, so basically, int row is going to be, well, it's going to be in this case 6. That's going to be what we pass into this function. And then char choice is going to be 2. So if the choice is not a lowercase or not a capital lowercase c, in this case it wouldn't be, you'd have to go ahead and say int, I'm going to go ahead and call it column. I'm going to set it to be choice minus character 0 minus 1. Very bizarre notation, but what does this actually do right there? that's going to convert it from a character to an integer. So for example, if choice contains the character 2, then minus it by character 0 will give us the actual digit 2. If choice contained character 3, then minus it by character 0 will give us the actual digit 3. So we go from the character to the digit. And what the heck happened over here to my... Because I got too excited probably, and maybe I erased this back, so I'll have to like fix that at the end. Anyway, not important right now. I'll put this back in. I don't know what the heck just happened there. Let's see, I'm just gonna do this. Well, good enough, I guess. So we want to go ahead and then take this digit 2, minus it by 1. So this way we're going to go to the right position. So if I have choice contains character 2, then this formula is going to convert it into the actual integer 1, which is the second column. It'll go to that position, and since row 6 column 1 contains true, this function basically is going to return the following. It's going to return this number, which is going to be at row 0 column 1 of that seed costs sort of matrix. It returns that, but first it's going to set this to false afterwards, because now that seat has been taken by somebody. So after you you find which seat the user wants to book, you go ahead and return that number. Now there's two things you have to make sure. So if this choice goes beyond the bounds of this matrix, beyond the column index, return 0 back to main, which that's going to indicate to main that, okay, something went wrong. If it returns 0, that means you have to go ahead and maybe reprompt the user for something. Also, if let's say if I go ahead and call this function again and I pass in 2 again, well, this time around, if I try this again, well, now it contains false over here. So that means that seat's already taken, so return 0 again. So you only go ahead and return the actual value of that seat is if the row and the column is within bounds, and in that available seats matrix, that element contains true, which means that seat is available to be booked. So only then do you return the actual sort of, how should I say, the number, the cost of that seat. Now what if the user passes in C instead? So let's say if I go ahead and call this function book seat, available seats. I'm writing kind of fast, so I apologize for my bad handwriting, but I just want to try to not have this video take too long. It's already taking quite a bit as it is, but anyway. If I pass in C this time, that means in row 6 of my matrix, so this row right over here, I want to find the seat that has the cheapest cost that's still available. So if I were to go ahead and pass in C this time, you're going to go to row 6, and the cheapest seat is going to be this one. You have to linear search and find the smallest seat in that row. And you're going to mark this to be false and return 3.68. So either user can pass in a character 1 through 5. You have to convert that into a digit 0 through 4, which this formula right here I gave you is going to do that for you. It's going to convert it into the actual integer, the correct integer amount. If it's a C that's passed in, you have to go ahead and just find in that row, in row 6 in this case, because 6 is being passed in, you want to find the cheapest seat in that row, and then return that, but first set that, that index and the available seats to false, which means that it's now been booked. Return that price that seat back. So I think I have one more function left to cover. Let's go ahead and cover that one next. All right, so I think that's it. There's no other functions that you have to write. Now, of course, we do have these two recommended functions right there. So the string all caps, this is going to be used because the user, when they enter in venue name, they could write all kinds of weird upper lowercase characters. This is going to make it so the input will be case insensitive. So I've used this in my class to basically return an all caps version. You pass an str into this function. This function returns an all caps version of that string. And then a keep going function, this one's going to basically be used in your menu. So this is going to be called basically, so you're going to pass in a prompt. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to pass in this string into the function. It'll output this. And if the user enters a Y, it returns a true. If a user enters an N, it returns false. And within the function body actually, if the user enters a non-Y or non-N, it's going to reprompt within that function. This function internally will have a while loop inside of it, which will keep on running as long as the user does not enter a Y or an N. Once they do, it returns true or false. And then it's going to basically, if it's a true, then obviously our main algorithm, our main menu will still run. If it's no, it's going to escape out of this main menu. So this is basically how our functions work. So let's go ahead now and just go over the algorithm for int main and go over the sample run, and then we can go ahead and finally have this video come to an end. All right, so let's go ahead now and talk about the algorithm for main. So here it's going to be step by step is laid out nicely for you, so you can kind of follow step by step. So the first thing you're going to do is output welcome to a grand opening. You can prompt for input file and keep reprompting if it does not exist, the file. So this is pretty standard. Then call populate list. Notice how I spelled it correctly here, but did not spell it correctly earlier. But you're going to go ahead and call populate lists. Then check step 4 is going to be the first statement in your do while loop. So you first check if any seats are available by calling any available seats. So basically if there's no seats available, so if it returns false, then output sold out and then go to step 17, or in other words, you can break out its loop, and step 17 is really the very end of your program. So if there's no seats available, then obviously there's no point running this menu. Step 5, use output these two to the screen, because code grade is going to, I guess at least this is going to be the output you're going to have to check with. Then you're going to go ahead and call output the output shows function, which is going to output all of the available shows left. So just, earlier I went over how to write output shows. So you're going to go ahead and call that right here. I output extra line, but anyway, just because I use that just to separate everything nicely. Ask the user to make a choice. So they're going to pass in a string. So they're going to basically read in a venue name. And you want to go ahead and find if this venue is a valid venue. So you're going to take that string that they in step 8, and in step 9 you're going to go ahead and call validate choice. You pass in all the arrays, and you're going to pass in basically the choice read from step 8, the string, and pass it in. And then it's going to return some value. You're going to store this into a variable maybe called found index. If found index is -1, then go back to step 8 and ask the user again. So you can kind of see it's going to be a little loop inside of this big do while loop. If it's not -1, I'll put the name of that venue, and then also output and is an excellent choice, because you want to make the user feel, I forgot to put, it's supposed to be another quotation right there, I forgot to put that. But of course we output this, make the user feel happy about their choice. We don't want to make the users feel self-conscious about what venue they chose to use or chose to go to. So we have that. Output a new line. Then output the following, and output, so you tell the user any particular seat, or do you want to go the cheapest cheapest seat. Why did I write set? Cheapest seat is supposed to, well, it's supposed to say. I'll fix that as well. So I really needed to spell check my PDF, but it's okay. At least I addressed it here in the video. So it's supposed to be cheapest seat. I think actually in the actual output though, I actually did use seats. I guess I must have made a mistake on the PDF. It's okay. I'll fix that. So anyway, so the user will enter, at this point in step 12, you can assume a character will be read in, and it will be either a single digit, or it'll be C. So you read in this input, call a function book seat, and then the book seat function returns a value. If it returns if it returns 0, then go back to step 12 and ask the user again because there was something wrong. Otherwise, whatever value is going to, so whatever, so cost of one show, wait, let me just double check this thing. Oh, it's supposed to be the book seat function, I guess. This is supposed to be not cost of one show, it's supposed to be, It's supposed to be double book seat. So I guess I don't know why I didn't see this earlier either, but it's supposed to be book seat. Oh, never mind. I made a mistake. Sorry. I guess I could start this video again, this portion again, but it's okay. Never mind. So you call book seat, and you're gonna store the result into a variable called double cost of one show. I apologize. Um, so you're gonna have a variable called cost of one show. You're going to store the result of what that book seat function returns. My mistakes. I think it has it written right there. Yeah. So call the function book seat. Okay, and then if that contains 0, go back to step 12. Otherwise, you're going to add this to total cost. So total cost will be some running total. So you're going to basically just have total cost equals total cost plus cost of one show. So you're going to go ahead and put that there. You're just going to sum this up. You want to go ahead and add up the total money made so far in this program. Then you're going to ask the user if they wish to continue. And you're going to go ahead and I recommend call the keep going function. If it returns true, then jump back to step 4. Otherwise, escape out of this loop. So you're going to have a do while loop basically, and the while portion will be the result of this function keep going. If you enter yes, you jump up to the very top of step 4, and it's going to be that menu. So this step 4 through step 16 is going to be that big do while loop. You have a few while loops within this. Let's say if the program they decide to quit or sold out, then you go ahead and output the money made, output the total cost variable. Also another typo. Wow, it's a lot of typos. But I guess it's not the worst case typos. I guess a worst typo could have been. It could have made like an actual like semantic error. I guess misspelling something isn't the worst thing on the planet, or me getting confused by this variable right there. I guess it could have been worse, right? So not the end of the world. So that's basically that's going to essentially be the main algorithm. Let's go ahead and do show a sample output over here. So in this program, I first prompt the user for a file. I put in theme park. Outputs all that stuff to us. Outputs the venues. I'm gonna go ahead and type in Chip Skylark. Of course, Chip Skylark is very popular. He's like the Justin Timberlake of this Fairly Odd Parents, or I guess maybe for newer audiences, is like one of those guys from BTS. I don't really know that band too well, but I know of them. So this guy is like whichever person is popular from BTS. There's always one person who's very popular in any of those kind of bands. Okay, I'm getting sort of trailing away from the explanation. So Chip Skylark. Okay, so we found Chip Skylark at this index of the matrix. So of course you tell him excellent choice, and then any seat you wish. And I'll type in 9. That goes beyond. I type in R. Also, as not a valid character, I typed in 3. So I wanted row 3, or we're going to convert that character 3 to index 2, or column 2. So we're gonna book this seat, 44.17. Then it outputs seat booked. You wish to continue. I hit H. That's not right. I hit Y. Okay, great. Outputs that, and we can see here for Chip Skylark, now it has an X right there, which means that that seat has now been that's now been sold to somebody. It's already booked to somebody else, so you can't use that anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and type in Mark, and Mark was that one alien who really had that surfer dude kind of voice, but his name was Mark in that one episode. The guy who was scared, I don't know, they had weird, they were a strange, sort of strange group of characters, Mark and his family. But anyway, let's go ahead and type in Mark. I'm gonna type in C. So I want to find the cheapest seat for Mark. So for Mark, the cheapest seat obviously is $1.25. So seat is booked, hit Y, and we can see $1.25 now contains next. I choose Mark a couple of times here and there. And at a certain point, we can see that Mark, the seats are being taken. So I guess this patron really wants to watch Mark do all kinds of weird stunts, I suppose. And at the very end, we choose Mark again, we choose the cheapest seat, and there's only one seat available, which that's going to be the cheapest one. That's kind of an edge case for your program. So they're all going to be X's. So go ahead and type in Y, we can see here that mark is not going to be output anymore. If I go ahead and type in mark to selection, it's going to reprompt me because it's going to return a false, because mark is a valid string in this venue, but the problem is that every seat for the mark show has now been booked. If I go ahead and type in Philip the nickel, well, there is no venue at all called Philip Nickel, so again it will return -1. Then Chompy the goat, I guess it's at index 012, so it returns a 2 back to us, and so forth. That's something I'll hit no to quit, and that's how much money that was made. And of course, Mr. Crocker, he's going to get suspicious about what's happening, so we have to get out of here before he, reports the fairies, and then Timmy will lose his fairies if Mr. Crocker reports it, so you have to make sure we're careful about that. So yeah, so that's basically it. So take your program source file and upload it to CodeGrade by deadline. And yeah, so have fun coding this. And yeah, I guess till next time, take care.